All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. We are live to discuss the breaking news, the news we've awaited for 64 days. Our long national nightmare is over. Rutgers has a defensive coordinator, Travis Johansson. This is not a name we had heading into this process. South Dakota head coach, not defensive coordinator. He's got a long track record as a defensive coordinator. Brian, you want to bring us through before we make pass our judgments and give opinions? Bring us through, because people, I sure do not know who he is. I did not know who he was. Who is Travis Johansson?
Travis Johansson is a longtime defensive coordinator who was the head coach of South Dakota, named that position last offseason after the longtime coach there retired. He has been a defensive coordinator at South Dakota for 6 years. He was the defensive coordinator at Grandview University, which is NAIA, a lot of vowels.
Close up.
And then he was the DC at his alma mater, Concordia St. Paul, which is a D2 school. So he's been a defensive coordinator a lot of places, coordinated a lot of elite defenses, a lot of places, never coordinated at the FBS level, which is one of the first things that jumps out to me. Not necessarily a bad thing, but that is just something that kind of stands out. But the guy can coach defense. I think that's clear. The numbers are really good. We can go through them here in a bit. The only thing I want to make clear, it's South Dakota. It's not South Dakota State. It's not North Dakota State. It's not North Dakota, just to make sure we know what school the guy was coaching.
Right. Yeah. And you're only saying this because there was some confusion here as the crack staff of NJ.com was trying to break this story. We heard South Dakota State and was asking people, I don't even remember the guy's name, very similar name, actually. I think it was Johnson. It's the South Dakota State name.
Dan Johnson or Dan Jackson.
Right. Yeah. And we're like, we heard it's South Dakota State guy. We turned out it's South Dakota. They are two separate universities. So who knew? So that in South Dakota, they're not the powerhouse. South Dakota State is the powerhouse. South Dakota's not. He's done a really nice job there based on what I've seen. This year, he beat both South Dakota State and North Dakota, made the playoffs, won a playoff game. So his first year as a head coach was a success. You know, my natural first question is, all right, why is he making this jump? And I think, the reasons are pretty obvious that when you're at a place like South Dakota, you're getting your players plucked away. He lost a bunch of guys from his roster. That's a part of it. I think he's getting a big raise. There's no question about that. An enormous raise to move from a coordinator job in the Big Ten from where he is now. And from, just talking to people, I think there is also the sense he wants to be a head coach on this level. This is a chance for him to watch Greg Schiano, to be up close with someone who shares his sort of defensive philosophy. I mean, I don't know. I certainly like the move for him, and I like the move for Rutgers. Brian, look, we've talked about this, on this podcast in columns, that Greg Schiano needed to get out of his comfort zone. And he needed to find the Kirk Shiraka, for lack of a worse way, of the defense. Someone who could come in here, someone who could take that off his hands, someone he could trust to lead this. This is who this guy is. This is that opportunity. Shared philosophy, a young guy on the rise. I don't know. I like it. I wanted it to be an outside the box hire. I wanted it to be someone with experience. I wanted it. This is it. This checks all the boxes for me.
We'll each give a grade later on in the pod with all the factors in, because I agree there are a lot of factors to throw in. I just wanted to add some stuff. So at South Dakota, you're right, they're not South Dakota State, which has won national championships, or North Dakota State, but they joined FCS in 2008, and the last 3 years, in which 2 of them he was DC and last year he was head coach, were the 3 most successful in program history. Yeah. They made a semifinal his last year as DC. They made a quarterfinal on either of those other years. They've gotten big wins. I'm going to read these stats to you. In 2023, when he was the DC, they finished 4th in the FCS rankings. I believe, as a team, they had their first ever 10-win season. The defense was top 10 in scoring defense, top 25 in total defense and passing defense, top 30 in sacks. Steve,
whoa!
How about that? That's a foreign concept for this guy away. Maybe not for very long. In 2024, his last year as a DC, top 10 once again in scoring defense and top 25 in total defense. And then last year, I don't have really the defensive stats. I don't know how involved he was in the defense as a head coach, to be frank with you, but they went 10-5. They went to the quarterfinals. They beat 3 top 25 teams. So the credentials are there. I think if we look at it from, if they hired this guy 30 days into the search, I think I would still be pretty impressed. I think it would be a good hire. the fact they did it 64 days into the search when we were, I mean, I was already a week into Greg Schiano was going to be the DC mode.
Of course. Absolutely. 100%. Thought that's where it was headed. Yep. Agreed.
So that makes me feel even better about it. Right. So I think the context matters there too. I'll give my grade first. I guess a B, right? Like, I don't think it's an A, because an A plus is like a home run, one of the best DCs in the country. That was never going to happen. An A is like a sitting FBS DC with proven power forward production that always felt pie in the sky. A B plus would have been, a high rising FBS power four DC who's, continuing to ascend in his career. And this B is a B to me because the only reason I wouldn't give him higher is the lack of FBS experience. That kind of makes me nervous, but he has experience leading a defense for a long time and developing them into really good, really solid defenses. And he has the experience of being a head coach and putting a new team together. The FCS level is probably a little lower as far as there's probably a little bit more continuity at the FCS level. Aside from losing your top guys, you probably keep guys and develop them more so than you do at the FBS level. But I feel good about this guy's ability to bring a unit together, especially at a time where Rutgers is essentially revamping its entire defense. I think that was something the combo last year struggled to do, and I think I feel more confidence in him being able to make a cohesive unit out of all the stuff they bring.
Yeah. I think I might go a little higher. I might go B plus, A minus. And this is not again. Guys, I haven't watched a minute of South Dakota. I almost said the wrong team of South Dakota. The Yotes, the Coyotes. We don't know. We don't know how this is going to work out. Obviously, but again, as I go through what I wanted from this job and what I knew, being realistic about it. Yeah, of course. You want to it'd be great. You get a sitting DC, someone with a ton of experience, like Wink Martindale, going to walk through that door. Something like some of the names you've been seeing on message boards. And I will say, a lot of the names, and I have no idea how many of them are real. A lot of them were not real, from what I understand, that were out there, were rumored, did not have DC experience. Like were people who would be making that step up to become a DC and would have to learn on the fly. And I don't know that would have been the right decision necessarily for Rutgers at this point in their journey as a program. Again, the panic that they were going to recycle somebody, another Rob Smith, since this search took longer than the last one. And that's what they ended up with last time. I thought that was a bad idea. You've got a seasoned play caller, with head coach experience. I think that's relatively important. That's something I did not think they'd get. I get it. It's on I will knock it down a half grade because it's on that level. It's a different level, but it's still football. And this is fascinating, Brian. And someone sent me a link to a Sports Illustrated story, and Connor Orr, one of the great Sports Illustrated NFL writers, when the NFL was dealing with all the spread offenses, they went to the college level to find tips on how to defend that. And Travis Johansson is one of the people that quoted in the story. One of the people where NFL coaches were going to him, to people like him, not just him. I think Greg might have been this. Greg Shannon might have been in the story too. Yeah, to get some tips on how to do it. And I thought that was fascinating. Here's a guy, who was respected at that point in his career already, in his 30s. That's a good sign. Based on everything, he's got a good personality, which we really didn't have with the last DC. I don't know. I think if you're a Rutgers fan, you should be optimistic.
I would agree. Again, I think I feel better about the hire than I thought where it was going. Right.
That might be part of why I'm grading high too, because I thought it were going to be, hey, meet, So what was his name? We put it up. Can we put it up on this? Because someone put it on our Discord. Craig Schiano, the defensive coordinator, is going to be Greg in a mustache. Absolutely. That's part of it.
Well, some of it is there was a fun couple hours where Richie O'Leary from On3 reported that this morning at the New Jersey Football Coaches Association, Greg was a keynote speaker, and he told the crowd that they're going to have a DC coming in the next day or two, and it's going to be an outside the box hire. And the speculation obviously ran wild. Someone said Dave Weinstedt, who has not coached in 13 years and is a Big Ten Network analyst. And I thought, well, I think I'd rather me be the DC than Dave Weinstedt. So as long as it wasn't Dave Weinstein, I thought I would have a good feeling about it. But all jokes aside, I agree. I'd love to hear grades from people watching. Looks like we have a good crowd here. Throw in your grades in the chat. We'd love to have some participation and throw in some questions. We're all kind of learning about this on the fly. Maybe someone has seen something interesting about this guy that we haven't yet. So throw that in the chat and like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Right. Let me throw a name at you, Steve, okay, who this guy kind of reminds me of. There's a little bit of differences, obviously, for reasons we've mentioned before, but does this strike you as a little bit Joe Harasimiak-esque?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I have not met him yet, but I've heard he's kind of got a personality that's, I guess, I don't know. It's good. That's a good point. In what ways do you think it is?
So, like Travis, Joe was a head coach at the FCS level. Obviously, less time. He was a prominent DC at that level. The only difference here is that Joe came to Rutgers after a couple years as the DC at Minnesota. So he had Big Ten experience.
He did. Correct.
That to me is the big difference. But otherwise, just as far as being a successful lower level coach, I see that. And I can understand kind of the concern of not having FBS experience, of thinking, can a guy go from the FCS and move up to the FBS? I have less concerns about that from a coaching's perspective than, say, a player perspective, right? Because the coach isn't putting on pads and going up against Big Ten defenders. Right. Football is football at the end of the day. And I like the guy's young. I know we're kind of all over the place here. I do like that he's young. That, to me, is a positive. He's not set in his ways and can work with Greg here. And Greg can groom the guy. I think Greg does well in grooming guys he sees potential in. And I think this might even rejuvenate Greg to a certain degree.
Right. And that's the other part of it, too. It takes this all, hopefully, and it's got to. He's got to. Greg's got to let him coach the defense. Like, he's got to let him do it and take him off his plate. And I think that'll serve two purposes. One, it will allow him to focus on the CEO job, which he's excellent at. That's the most important part of the job. And two, I mean, I think the danger with what happened last year is him wearing down during the course of the year, because you take on so much. He's a notorious micromanager. He's had trouble with that in the past. When things go wrong, you become even more of one. For him to start the season like that, when you're the defensive coordinator and you're dealing with all that, I just thought it would have been a disaster. I get other coaches do it, and it's out there. I understand that part of it. So that takes that off the table. I think that'll be a good thing. Here's a question for you now, personnel wise. And this is an observation I have, and I don't know if it's a question or an observation, but personnel-wise with this defense, do you think there's more of an upside here than we're talking about, or is this a really big job for Travis Johansson? I guess those are the two. That's a two-part question. Is there some upside? This unit can be better than we think, or is he coming in with a lot of heavy lifting to do?
You're saying as far as the players he has to work with, the roster,
the current personnel, what we saw last year, the players coming back, the players coming in, there's a lot of moving parts. Like I'd have a hard time doing the depth chart on the defense right now. Put it that way.
No doubt. I mean, you lose essentially all of the starting unit, right? And it's easy to say, well, they had one of the worst defenses in modern program history. How much worse can it get? My friend, it could always get worse, right? I don't think it will, but let's not be naive and say, well, it'll definitely be better. Yeah. I guess the truthful answer here, I can try to give you some speculation or whatever. The truthful answer is I don't know. There are too many new faces. There are too many variables here. There's a lot of guys from the lower level, which not necessarily a bad thing, but you don't have legitimate comparisons to make between how they did at their old stop to the Big Ten because of the jump. So I don't know. And the other thing, my question is, when we talked to Greg before, after the season, before the DC thing got really underway, how married he is to his system. And he said, he's tied to certain principles that are kind of non-negotiable, and has some willingness to change. Right. Mm-hmm. So I don't know to what degree any of that means, like how big of a change is the guy allowed to make, but how much is Johansson going to be able to put his fingerprint on this defense, and how will that affect the personnel too? Like, this is another variable that I don't have the answer to.
Yeah, and we also don't know if he's going to bring players with him. It's a question that's come up. It is one of the better programs at that level. It looks like, just doing a quick search, that they've been not picked clean, but they've lost players like their starting running backs at Iowa now. They've lost players to other programs. So I don't know.
Well, just to clarify on that, because people might be confused how they can get players in the portal after the portal closed. When a head coach leaves his job, that opens the portal for 5 days for players on that team to go outgoing. And once you're in the portal, obviously you can join a team whenever. So in theory, South Dakota players can leave and they'll be, on the market, so to speak. I just don't know. I'd have to do a dive on the roster. Are there players there that can play at this level? I don't know. But Rutgers is still going to add players. They're not done per se with their roster addition. I know tight end is the priority, but there are other positions they can try to still add depth to. So who knows? It's possible, but I don't think this isn't a situation like, for example, like Matt Campbell going to Penn State and taking his entire Iowa State roster with him. The timing is off, and the situation is completely different.
Completely different, totally, absolutely.
Let's go through. I was going to go through the questions because I'm going to do the same thing. Okay. Just go real quick. My guy Akiri, who's not going to be at the game tomorrow, he says that us going live on a Friday made his day. Friday news dumps, after all, are good for one thing, and that's getting me and Politi to get off our fat asses and doing a little bit of work every once in a while. Jonathan Price, JAD Price says, yes, Rutgers fans, there is a Santa Claus. He's obviously excited about the hire. This might be a situation where, you're in the desert for, 3 days without water, and the water that tastes just normal tastes like, the nectar of the gods because you've just been so thirsty. I think that's kind of part of the situation here. Our friend Infinite MPG, is this copium or does this seem like a solid hire? Curious why it took so long. And it's kind of weird a sitting head coach is leaving the slate. Any thoughts?
We think we have a lot of theories on why it took this long. He was not going to hire someone he didn't want to hire. He is meticulous. He did not care about our deadlines that we created. You got to have it before the portal opens, or maybe before it closes. Like he didn't care. He wasn't worried about that. He wanted to get it right. Also, I think he wasn't going to hire just anybody. I don't think anybody was going to work for him. I think he talked to a lot of people. I don't know. And why would a head coach leave this late? That's a good first question. One of the first questions we have to ask Travis Johansson when he gets the job. I think part of it is opportunity for him. Maybe he looked at his roster and said, you know what? This is going to be a tough year next year. Guys move, like the coaching profession is, people move in that profession more than any job out there in college now. So I was not surprised by that part of it.
Yeah, a couple things to add. I do think Greg wanted to explore the NFL market, right? So I think that just naturally waiting for that season to unwind, progressively teams get out of the playoffs, the regular season, et cetera. So I think that naturally was going to always extend. I agree with you totally. This was going to be a thorough search. He was not going to hire a guy just to hire him. They wanted to get it right after last year's debacle. And I think he wanted to avoid being the DC, right? I know we talked about that ad nauseum. I really think that was the last thing he wanted to do. That would be break glass in case of emergency deal. So I think that kind of all played a factor here. And I think for him leaving, I would think of 2 or 3 reasons. One, he's getting a significant salary bump, right? I think it's going to get to it's going to get to the level where I know I posted the tentative agenda for the Board of Governors meeting on Wednesday. It did not have anything football related. Obviously, it could change between now and then. I think there will be an item added for approving of salary of a coach, because I think he will, if he was a co-DC like last year, it's 2 different things where you're splitting, a 7-figure salary between 2 guys. Joe Harris-Simiak, his last year of his contract before leaving was this current year. He was set to make $1.5 million. Right. Kirk Shiraka makes something like 1.8. I would venture a guess that Johansson will make somewhere in the realm of 1.2, 1.3. I forget
what the rule is for a meeting item, though. It has to be less. It has to be more than the president makes.
I think equul or more.
Right. And the president makes more than he used to at this point. It might not be.
He makes 1.1 is when I checked. Checked more time. Okay. Yes, he earns, his base salary is 1.1 million, and I think that's the threshold.
I googled it. I don't know that Travis Johansson is making. This is
you couldn't find a number. I think he made like 300,000 as the DC. He probably made 4 to 5 as the head coach, something like that.
It seems like a number. That'd be a good number. Yeah.
Right, you're making double your salary, right? And considering the fact that New Jersey, you probably have this cost of living being 4 times the cost of living in South Dakota. Still,
that's true.
It's a nice pay bump.
Vermilion, get some real estate listings in Vermilion. I wonder what part of the state that is. I don't even know.
I don't know, but he can get an apartment next to mine maybe for a reasonable price. Otherwise, I think he's going to be paying $1 million for the top floor of a 2-bedroom or a 2-family house here in New Jersey. The way things are. Anyway,
get some more questions here.
Wait, hold on. Just the other thing. The other thing is the responsibility, right? Like, and the ceiling, the visibility. It's one thing to be really good as an FCS head coach, and obviously coaches pay attention to this stuff. But if you're able to come to Rutgers and transform the incredibly low bar of a horrible defense into even a competent defense in your first year, that elevates your profile, and you're doing it at the Big Ten level, and that could be, a jumping off point to either a better DC job, a better FBS Group of 5 head coaching job.
Look, the former running backs coach at Rutgers under Chris Ash is coaching in the Super Bowl, the defense. Anything can happen here in Piscataway. Come on. That's a great
How about
story.
that staff, man? How about that staff?
It's great. I love
Zach
it.
Kerr, Aaron Henry.
Different topic entirely. But yeah, if you haven't read it, go read Brian's story on Zach Kerr today, which is great. He is calling the defense for the Patriots after just a wild journey here to Piscataway. All right, more questions. What else we got?
Just going back through the grades, B to B plus, B plus. I think everyone's kind of in agreement with us. Of course, how could you not be?
We haven't seen the. Yeah. Oh, here we go. It's an A. Kevin Fine. He's an optimistic guy.
Yes, he gives an A.
If Greg gets suspended, that's a good point. It's happened in history, though. I mean, better than Norris Wilson. He was a head coach.
I think he was. I think you're correct.
Columbia, yeah.
JP, our friend, unfortunately makes the same mistake we did and asks about South Dakota State's defensive rankings. But I will go quickly through what they were the last couple of years. So last year, they were 7th in points per game, 17th in total defense, 17th in rush defense, and 42nd in passing defense. Sorry, this was his last year as DC. This was 2024. Right. In 2023, they were 8th nationally in points per game, 25th in total defense, 18th in pass defense, and 51st in rush defense. So, big, the rushing and passing were a little different in both years, but overall as a defense, top 25 in both years.
Okay.
Hunso says it reminds him when Oklahoma State hired Mike Urich from Schippenberg. I'm not sure how long ago that was. Does that ring a bell to you, Steve?
It does not, I'm afraid.
I've heard of the name before. Wasn't he all right, so Mike Urich is currently the offensive coordinator at Youngstown State. Mm-hmm. He became the OC at Oklahoma State, which, I think Mike Gundy was probably the OC for the most part there. I think it's a little different situation here. I don't think Greg is going to be the DC and this guy's the DC in name. I think this guy will have some or mostly autonomy to call his own defense.
Right.
With the bar set so low after last year, they could have hired Chris Ash as DC and it would have been an upgrade. I think hiring Chris Ash as a DC would have been a home run.
Home run. He's a great DC. That wasn't the problem. Yeah. He was in, even Notre Dame's after it looked like he'd be fired at week 2. Notre Dame's defense was excellent last year. It wasn't the defense's fault. So
just put Chris Ash in a room, let him watch film and coach up,
absolutely. Yep.
And he'll be great. Ryan Hall, what type of defense does he actually run? And you think it's going to change for the Big Ten? That is a fair question that we don't have the answer to.
Multiple, aggressive. These are the words I've heard. Yeah.
Does, let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of a defensive coordinator calling a passive defense?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or a singular defense?
I've certainly watched. I've watched them. I've just heard similar in philosophy to Greg. That's what I've heard. So I take that what it is. I'm hoping if you're Rutgers fan, you should hope that it also will be personnel dependent and not, we're not going to get to the point where we're jamming, round pegs in the square holes here with because you have a philosophy. Another reason why I like this, like just somebody else who can come in here and look at what Rutgers has and make the most out of it. That's got to be it. That's the whole thing.
I would agree. We've talked for 24 minutes about a guy we really don't know that much about. So kudos to us.
And he's good. Apparently, they're gonna have a press conference with him. We'll get to meet him. We'll get, we'll I don't, if it's gonna be in person or if it's gonna be a Zoom. So it'll be good. We'll see what he's got to say. It's over, and and I think this is an important point to remember. Like, I know you're excited, but if the defense is good, you're not going to remember this. Like, we're not going to be talking about, it took 64 days. I get it. And, it's we live in a very immediate world here. And we were on the podcast saying the same things only because, not only because we're as impatient as anybody, but mainly because we thought it was going in a bad direction. Like, I thought this was going to end with either Greg or someone not at a good level. That didn't happen. So there you go. They made a good hire.
Yes, I will say the 64 days, whatever, it's not good, right? It is a sign of swinging and missing, right? Like you don't wait 64 days if this is your number one guy. Let's be clear. It is not.
Swinging or missing, yeah, or them meet or interviewing people and not liking it. A million reasons. Waiting for people. I
Agree.
right.
I'm saying
it shouldn't take that long. I agree with you on that. I absolutely, but
I agree with you that the end result ended up being fine. I agree with you. I agree that maybe there was a little too much on our part about the wait, but I will say the wait is totally something worth freaking out over by the fan base and brought up by us. And I had a point, but now I'm so enthralled in the 64 days thing that okay. So what I was gonna say is the thing with the 64 days, right? I think once it hit day 34, right, whatever day it was that the portal closed, like, and they had most of their portal class done. At that point, it didn't really matter. Right. At that point, the first half of this 64 days was about, all right, if you don't get the guy in at this point, he's not going to be able to help build the defense, have his say, and kind of control what players he's going to be working with here. Right. But once you go beyond those 32 days, he has no influence there. If you're able to get a hire the way they did, now you have a guy that you hopefully can groom for 2, 3, 4 years. You know, you're not going to fire the guy after the end of next year and have Rutgers is going to start becoming what they were in the 2010s with the offensive coordinators. And you can take that and build something with him. And I would say that ultimately, with all the rigmarole we dealt with, they landed in a good spot.
Yeah. All right, let's end it there. We've got a basketball game to cover tomorrow. I'll be there. Can't wait.
We'll go live after that one too. Huh? How about that? Or are you going to skip that one and just go home?
I guess. Okay. We can. Sounds good.
3 lives in 3 days for you. You did the Devils. You do this. You do.
I did it. That's right. That's the real live show. That was like an upgrade. I was on the Devils live show. That people listen and throw money at him. We don't give no one's throw money to have a super chat here. I don't even know if we have that possibility.
We don't. To be fairness to Rutgers fans, before I make the dig, that have you seen the financial report and how much money fans give to Rutgers? You think they're going to give money to us?
Give $15 to ask us a question. We're gonna take your question regardless on this thing.
We're desperate for free questions. And what I will say, what the Devils podcast does well that we always forget, and I will not forget right now, is to thank our sponsor, the Heldridge, the best hotel in New Brunswick, downtown. Yes. Beautiful New Brunswick. If you need to stay there for a Rutgers football game, if you need to stay there to go watch whatever World Cup team is coming to New Brunswick in training, if you want to stay there and visit the beautiful downtown, eat at Steakhouse 85, and check out the what's the big building they're building now that I can't remember downtown.
Helix.
The Helix. If you want to check out,
they're picking out the furniture. They're building it. They're picking out the furniture for the Helix. This could be a podcast studio in the Helix. I learned that. Chris Palladino on Facebook said we might record a show at the Helix. Wouldn't that be something? That's like a full circle moment. Let's do that. Put it on the list. Things to do this fall.
Beautiful. But anyway, wherever you're going in New Brunswick, make sure you stop and stay a night or 2 or 3 or 10 at the Heldridge Hotel, the best hotel in downtown New Brunswick.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll be back after Nebraska game. Bye.